They rerouted their gutter into my driveway, so I turned their flood into their downfall. It started after the first heavy rain of spring. Normally, my concrete driveway handled storms fine. Water ran down to the street drain, no problem. But this time, when I opened my front door, I found a shallow river gushing across the pavement and pooling ankle-deep against my garage. At first, I thought it was just bad weather, but when the clouds cleared, I spotted the real cause. My neighbor's shiny new downspout, bright aluminum, freshly installed, wasn't pointed at his own yard. Number. It was routed under the fence and ended right at the edge of my driveway. Every gallon of roof runoff, thousands of gallons an hour, was now my problem. I marched over. "Hey, Carl, your gutter is draining into my property." He grinned like I was making small talk. "Yeah, the landscaper said it was the easiest route. Your driveway slopes better than my lawn. Consider it free irrigation." Irrigation. My garage door was swelling from the water. My concrete was cracking from freeze-thaw cycles. But Carl just shrugged. "Water's water, man. It'll dry." I called the city, filed a complaint. They promised an inspector in 6 to 8 weeks. Meanwhile, every storm turned my driveway into a swamp. My car tires sat in puddles so deep they left ruts in the asphalt. I tried trenching a temporary channel to divert the flow. Carl spotted me digging and laughed. "You're wasting your time. That water's not going anywhere else." That was the moment something snapped. He thought he'd trapped me. But water doesn't just flow one way. I started documenting. Photos after each storm. Videos of the torrent blasting onto my property. Measurements of the puddle depth. 3 inches, 5 inches, 7 inches. I logged dates, times, and even water damage receipts when my garage door motor shorted out. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed a plan. That's when I remembered a trick from a buddy who worked construction. He once told me, water doesn't disappear. It just finds the lowest point. So I decided to give Carl exactly what he wanted, his water back. I bought 2 yards of heavy clay fill and rented a compactor. Over a weekend, I reshaped the slope of my driveway. Just a subtle ridge, no taller than 4 inches, but enough to redirect every drop of water back toward the fence. Then, at the exact spot his downspout crossed into my property, I installed a French drain pipe that ran underground for 10 feet, right back into his flower beds. It was legal, it was tidy, and it was poetic. The next storm came on a Thursday. Sheets of rain hammered the roofs. I watched from my porch as Carl's downspout spewed like a fire hose. Only this time, the water hit my ridge, rolled into the French drain, and vanished. For a moment, Carl probably thought he'd won, but 10 minutes later, his perfect tulip garden turned into a swamp. By the half-hour mark, his backyard looked like a pond. By the end of the night, his basement sump pump was working overtime. The next morning, I found him bailing water with a bucket, rage plastered across his face. He stormed over, soaking wet. "You diverted it back to me." I smiled. "I just made sure the water stayed on the property it came from." He threatened lawsuits, called me names. But when the city inspector finally arrived, clipboard in hand, it wasn't me who got the warning. It was Carl. Illegal rerouting of stormwater without a permit. Violation of Code 52.14. The inspector pointed to the swampy mess in Carl's yard. "Sir, you're responsible for your own drainage. Fix it within 30 days or face fines up to $10,000. Carl sputtered. But the law was clear. He paid contractors thousands to reroute his downspout properly into the municipal drain. Meanwhile, my driveway stayed dry. The best part? The inspector reviewed my French drain setup and nodded. Textbook solution. Nicely done. Carl barely looks me in the eye now. His garden never recovered, and he sold his house the next year, probably still bitter. As for me, I park in a dry driveway every storm, knowing I proved the simple truth. Water runs downhill, and arrogance always pools where it belongs. So tell me, if your neighbor tried to flood you out, would you take the hit or give the flood right back? They tried to bully the only people who ever treated me like family. So I buried the HOA with their own rules. George and Margaret lived just outside my HOA, a big old house on a wide piece of land. No kids, no relatives, just the two of them and their dog. To most neighbors, they were those old people, easy to ignore. But to me, they were family. When my mower broke, George lent me his. When my car died, Margaret drove me to work. And when my parents passed away, they were the first ones at my door. So I checked on them every week. Helped fix their fence, shared dinners, listened to their stories. They weren't just neighbors, they were my second parents. But the HOA hated them. 20 years ago, George and Margaret fought the HOA in court over a boundary line. The HOA lost, and they never forgot. So the harassment started. Anonymous complaints to the county about weeds on their land. Letters claiming their dog barked too loud. Even threats to fine them, which was laughable, since they weren't even in the HOA's jurisdiction. Margaret cried when she got the letters. George just shook his head, but I could see it wore him down. One night, George told me, "Maybe we should sell. We're too old for this fight." That's when something in me snapped. The HOA wanted a war? Fine. But I wasn't going to fight with fists. I started reading, digging through HOA bylaws, county codes, even property tax filings, and what I found was gold. The HOA president's backyard shed, built without a permit, his fancy deck, not up to safety code, and the HOA's community improvement fund, half the money was unaccounted for. They weren't just bullies, they were hypocrites. So I went to work. I photographed the unpermitted shed, got drone shots of the unsafe deck, filed open records requests on the HOA's finances. Every night I added another page to a binder labeled Receipts. But I didn't stop there. I threw a neighborhood BBQ at George and Margaret's place, invited everyone, let them see the couple not as troublemakers, but as kind, generous people. Margaret baked pies. George told stories. By the end, half the neighborhood was laughing on their porch. The HOA president hated it. His power was slipping. Then came inspection day. A city truck rolled up. Out stepped an inspector with a clipboard. The HOA president strutted out, ready to complain about George and Margaret again. But instead, the inspector walked right past them and into the president's yard. Unpermitted structure, unsafe deck, possible misuse of funds, violation after violation, all documented. The president's face went pale. Neighbors whispered. And for once, George and Margaret stood tall, smiling. The HOA fined its own president thousands. The county ordered him to tear down his illegal shed, and suddenly, the letters stopped. George and Margaret never got another complaint. In fact, neighbors started stopping by just to check in, the same people who once ignored them. As for the HOA president, his reputation drowned in the very swamp he tried to create. And me? I just kept doing what family does, protecting the people who protected me. Because sometimes the best revenge is kindness, backed up by receipts. Like and subscribe for more stories. They told me my wheelchair ramp made the neighborhood look bad, but I wasn't about to let the HOA take away my independence. After my accident, my world shrank. I couldn't climb stairs anymore. The front porch, the very doorway to my own home, had become a barrier. So I did what anyone would do. I saved, I planned, and I built a modest ramp. Nothing fancy, just sturdy, safe, and to city code. For the first time in months, I rolled up that ramp and through my own front door without help. It wasn't just wood and screws. It was freedom. But 2 days later, a letter showed up from the HOA. Ramp violates aesthetic guidelines. Remove immediately. I thought it had to be a mistake. Surely they wouldn't fight a wheelchair ramp? But then came the fines. $50, then $100. Threats of a lien on my home. The HOA president, Mr. Collins, even smirked at me once when I asked for understanding. Rules are rules. Take it down. Use the back door if you have to backdoor. My back door had 3 steps too. He didn't care. He just wanted his picture-perfect neighborhood. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, fury boiling in my chest. Was my safety, my dignity, really against the rules? So I started digging. I pulled out every letter, every fine, every threat. I highlighted words like unsightly and eyesore. Then I went further. State housing codes, federal accessibility laws, the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and there it was, clear as day. Homeowner associations cannot discriminate against accessibility modifications. The next morning I made calls to the city, to a disability rights advocacy group, and finally to an attorney who specialized in cases like mine. The fines kept coming. $200, $300. Neighbors whispered. Some told me quietly they were on my side, but they didn't want trouble with the board. Mr. Collins strutted around like he'd already won. You'll take it down or lose the house. Simple as that. He didn't know I was already building my case. Photographs of the ramp, doctor's letters about my condition, the stack of violation notices, each one nastier than the last. I put it all in a binder, labeled it Receipts. When the court date came, the room felt heavy. I wheeled in, heart pounding, binder on my lap. Mr. Collins sat smug across the aisle, HOA lawyer at his side. The judge, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, asked for opening remarks. The HOA lawyer went first. This homeowner has violated aesthetic standards. Structures must conform for the good of the community. I wanted to laugh. A ramp, a basic necessity, wasn't a structure. It was my lifeline. When it was my turn, my voice shook at first, but then I opened my binder. Page by page, I laid it out. Doctors' statements, ADA statutes, photos proving the ramp was safe, modest, and built to code. And then, the kicker, a copy of a state housing memo from just last year. It warned HOAS specifically, denying accessibility accommodations is a violation of federal law. The judge leaned forward, expression like steel. Mr. Collins, this is highly irregular. This court recognizes accessibility as a right, not a decoration. We'll be opening an investigation immediately. Mr. Collins stammered. His lawyer went pale, and then came the ruling. The fines against me, thrown out. The lien threat, illegal. The ramp, permanently allowed. The HOA was fined $25,000 for discrimination and ordered to pay all my legal fees. As for me, and remind myself, this isn't just wood, it's proof. Proof that rights matter, that bullies lose, that justice eventually rolls in.